Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. You are watching School Psych Podcast. I'm Rachel. I'm a school psychologist in Maryland. We're missing Rebecca tonight, but we'll try and fill the void a little bit between Eric and I. But excited for a returning guest. I'm intrigued by this AI topic and a little bit nervous, I think, as all of us are. And he's the one that will tell us like it is too. So if we're all going to be, making sacrifices to our AI overlords, he'll tell us about that, I'm sure. But really excited for this topic and how it relates to school psychology and everything. But yeah, a little bit about how to participate tonight. We will keep an eye out on X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it for hashtag Psych Podcast. We will also be looking, there's the Facebook event and the Facebook group, School Psych Podcast. So we'll keep an eye there. And then probably the easiest way to participate is on YouTube. And so just leave a comment and we'll be able to see that. And sometimes we might flash them up on the dashboard for everybody to see. So feel free to contribute to the conversation. But I'm going to pass it over to Eric, and he's going to supplement anything that I forgot to mention and introduce our guest. Go for it, Eric.
All right. That was great, Rachel. I think you got it. I don't think you forgot anything. So yes, we have our guest, Dr. Adam Lockwood, coming back to talk to us about AI. And we'd love for it to be an interactive conversation. So if you're watching live, please post questions to Facebook or Twitter or right onto the YouTube page itself, the YouTube channel where the video is being broadcast. That will be sure to get the comments immediately. And after the conversation is over, you can still interact and ask us questions and email, and anything we don't know, we'll pass on to Dr. Lockwood as well. So I am of the vintage where AI and a lot of things are science fictionally a little bit existentially frightening for me. So I still haven't gotten my feet too wet with AI. So I'm really curious and anxious to hear about what's going on in the field. So just a quick introduction. Dr. Lockwood is an associate professor of school psychology at Kent State University. He received his Ph.D. in school psychology from Northern Arizona University. He's completed a pre-doctoral internship through the Louisiana School Psychology Internship Consortium, as well as leadership education in neurodevelopmental and related disabilities. Post-doctoral psychology fellowship at the University of Kansas Medical Center. And before moving to Ohio, he worked as a school psychologist in California and served as a faculty member in the psychology department at Western Kentucky University. He has a passion for working with individuals with autism and their families, as well as Native American stakeholders. Adam's current research focuses on the role of artificial intelligence in psychological and educational practice. He's also serves on NASP's Artificial Intelligence Task Force and the Ohio School Health Services AI Teletherapy Task Force. So Adam has been here before. We love talking with Adam. I consider him a friend and always enjoy getting to hear his thoughts, not only about this stuff, but about many things. So welcome, Adam. We're glad that you're here.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to start off just by asking you, how is AI being used in school psychology? What's currently going on?
Well, let's see what the data have to say. Can I share the screen here?
Sure.
So far I've done 3 surveys asking this. One was national, which is nice, but it was a year ago. And things are changing so rapidly that looking at data that are a year old they have a shelf life. Did another one in January. Even that I feel like has a shelf life. But these data we're going to look at right now are a month old or being collected right now. So I'm currently surveying allied health or related service people in Ohio. And you can see here it's about 1,350 people. Most of them are OTs, PTs, SLPs, nurses, counselors, but you can see about 122 of these people were school psychologists. And so one of the things I asked them is, all these people, but I parsed out school psychologists for us. I did all this today, by the way. All this today, all the interactive stuff is done with AI. I spend about 8 to 12 hours a day using artificial intelligence at this point. This is done using Claude. And this is free for anyone to take a look at. I still publish the old way because it's part of my job, but I do blog a lot, and I try to make data accessible and instant. So as soon as I analyze those data, I try to blog about it and put it up. And hopefully there'll be some links to my blog, but I want to get this data out there while it's still fresh. And so this is from today, so it's as fresh as it gets. And I asked, the yellow is just the participants in general. So SLPs, OTs, PTs, are you using AI at work? And as you can see, school psychologists are adapting AI much more quickly than other professions. Almost twice the rate. So 22% of school psychologists said, nope, haven't used it at work yet. But almost 46% of other folks, well, this actually includes school psychologists. So if you just look at everyone as a whole, people aren't using it nearly as much. But school psychologists, only 22% said, I'm not using it at work. You come over here, it's kind of a kind of an inverted bell curve. You have more school psychologists saying, yeah, I'm using it about less than once a month, and then once per month. But what you see here is that the biggest chunk of people, even more than non-users, are people who are using it weekly in the schools as school psychologists. And then if you look over here, you have your power users. Almost 20% of the people that we surveyed said, yeah, I'm using this daily as a school psychologist. These numbers have shifted a lot over the last year. This here, a year ago, was 30 or more. I can't remember the exact number, but 30% of school psychologists are like, oh, I haven't used it in the last 6 months. Not even non-school psychologists who are using it less are saying that at this point. Everyone's using it. And just anecdotally, I'll say people who aren't using it tend to be people who are close to retirement. They'll tell me like, I'm just gonna ride it out till retirement and not learn this. And I get that, and I'm not throwing shade or anything on those people. But if you're going to be around for the next 5 years or more, I think you need to figure this stuff out. So yeah, that's kind of the use. Everyone at this point, with the exception of about 1/5, are using AI at work in some capacity. We can look at personal use. Actually, people are using it more at work than for personal reasons, which is interesting. AI is awesome for personal things. If you are cooking and you don't have an ingredient, tell ChatGPT, I'm cooking this. I don't have butter. What can I use instead? And you'll be surprised at what it can substitute. Use yogurt or whatever. Or if you're planning a trip across the country, like I am doing right now, it will help you plan. It's not perfect, but it's very good for your personal life as well. But you can see here, gosh, 26% of school psychologists aren't using it at home. That number is lower at work. So what are people using it for? Let me just see here. I left off some, unfortunately, and I can just look at the numbers. This might have been my fault, or it might have been AI's fault. I don't remember. But one of the big use cases for AI, as we all know, is report writing. And you can see here, this is total participants, not just people who are using AI, but everyone said that they're using it to reduce jargon, about 15% of the total sample. They're using it to rewrite for comprehension, but the biggest chunks are writing for summaries and writing for recommendations. This is interesting to me because the data that I've collected very much supports one of them, but doesn't support the other. So I did a study looking at the ability of AI to write reports, in which I had ChatGPT and humans write reports. And the humans were licensed psychologists, and ChatGPT is just ChatGPT. And this is over a year ago, so it's outdated. But I had it write reports, and then I had 250 licensed psychologists rate those reports. And what I found is there was very little difference in quality as perceived by the licensed psychologists, with two exceptions. One was summaries, which they thought humans did a better job, that part at the end. And the other was recommendations, where they thought AI did a much better job. Now I want to provide a caveat. That was a long time ago. The technology has really progressed since then. I didn't use iterative prompting. That is, I didn't tell it to, I don't like this part, improve it. I didn't give it any specific prompts like act as a school psychologist. So it probably could have done a better job. But you can see people are using it for all sorts of uses. And some of the ones that I really like are reducing jargon. That is, we write reports that are 20 pages long and filled with psychobabble that nobody understands except for other school psychologists. That isn't very conducive for empowering stakeholders. So I encourage everyone who is using this and has some sort of compliant software, like I have Bastion GPT, and I can put my code in there. I have a institutional account that anyone can use and have a free 30-day trial. So if you'd like, I can share that with you as well. But I will say, write this at a 5th grade level, and it does a pretty good job so that parents can understand. So that's one use case that I really like.
I feel that the study that you mentioned about comparing the recommendations and the summary, that I would have bet it was the other way around, that it could write a good summary of everything, but maybe wouldn't be so good at the recommendations. The humans must be better at the recommendations. So that's really interesting.
No, if you really want to get good at it, ask for location-specific recommendations. It will search the web and be like, oh, well, there's this group, or there's this activity, or there's it's amazing at that. So let's see. Should I talk some more about what the survey found, or do we want to talk about something else?
Sure. I'm curious a little more about the survey. And I like the fact that you're looking at this sort of longitudinally too, as to what may have changed between now and last year. I'm still, I'm one of those folks approaching retirement who's sort of stuck in the mud. I do have to say, I used ChatGPT recently to develop a workout plan and some healthy menus for me for my exercise plan. And it was fantastic. Like, it offered to create a grocery list for me. And, here are some things to consider. Here's a 5-day workout plan that does X, Y, Z, and, meets the goals that you've suggested. I was kind of blown away, honestly. So I'm kind of impressed that folks have jumped in to utilize it for all kinds of things related to the field as well. I probably have no excuses for not jumping in to get it to summarize things for me. And, but I am curious, like, what else are school psychs doing? Maybe IEP goals. That's probably perhaps something, writing a good SMART goal.
And I've used it a couple times and been kind of turned off when I get things that I don't like. I don't have the patience, I think, to give it all these prompts and clean it up, which is bad. But for example, my district has a data board of all the DIBEL scores, like, kind of meshed together, and it's not like really user friendly or able to be put into a chart. So I'll kind of paste the whole mess and say, hey, put this into a chart with these columns and whatnot. And it was able to do that, except that I know that there's no oral reading fluency data for a kindergarten student. So, when the kid was in second grade, third grade, first grade, I'll expect to see numbers there, but I expect to see a blank when it's talking about oral reading fluency for that kindergarten year. And it always seems to make up some numbers and just goes in there. So I feel like I have to double check it all the time is my thing. But.
Well, a couple of things there. First of all, I was going to say, Eric, you're looking well fit, so it must be working pretty well for you with the workout plan and the diet. IEPs, there's quite a few studies that have looked at humans versus special ed teachers, and it does a good job. And in fact, I've blogged about that specific topic. As far as prompting, you should have some training on how to prompt because it's garbage in, garbage out. I do trainings. I've done trainings for many of the ESCs in Ohio, state organizations across the country. I'm doing a training for the School Neuropsych Institute in a month and a half. I'm doing some trainings for WPS and for SPG. So if you're interested in that, sign up because prompting is really important. How you ask, the process you go through is important. And I can talk a little bit about that. So how you prompt is really important. Also, making sure that you have a paid account is important. It really does make a difference. If I have any students out there who are listening or people who graduated recently and still have a .edu account, right now, Gemini will give you a free account. I think it's from the end of this month until August of 2026, but you have to sign up by the end of this month. A free Gemini account if you have a .edu email extension. So if you do have the edu account, please do that because Gemini is amazing. So you asked about what some other things school psychologists are doing. Like I said, just for today, I downloaded the data. I'm not done collecting, but I was like, I'm going to see where we're at today. Instead of going riding a bike, which is what I should have done, but I just got engrossed in this. So let me just take a look here real quick. Gotta find the. Okay.
While you're pulling that up, shout out to Dr. McClure, who's watching. We always like to have him on, and I think we're talking about maybe getting him back sometime in the fall, so that'll be exciting.
Yes, and perhaps as we continue discussion, we can talk about specific AI programs, and we have School Psych AI, and there's a number of other AI programs, so it would be interesting to talk about.
I'm not finding those data right now. I'm sorry. For some reason, when I downloaded, I didn't run those analyses. Like I said, I did this just today for this. I can pull up some older ones. Let me just take a look here.
Sure.
This is old. This is from January. And at that time, people said they were saving on average 4 hours per week. And what they were using it for were recommendations, summaries, to write reports, to come up with explanations, to answer work questions, and to generate emails. And I'll say for me, emails is the lowest hanging fruit. It's what I like to use AI for the most. You know those emails where you don't want to be rude, but you want to be rude? You know what I mean? Someone is like, being unreasonable or disrespectful, and you really want to tell them off, but you want to be professional and kind, so you don't want to tell them off. I used to have those emails and I would stew over them, and I would write it and I would rewrite it, and then I would set it overnight, and I would come back and I would look at it again. Now I just write it in bullets. And if you were to see what I put into AI at this point, punctuation's terrible, spelling's horrible. I don't capitalize. It's like somewhere below a text in the grammatical and it's terrible. But I just throw in a couple of things like, I want you to do this, I want you to do that, but say it in a professional and polite way, and it does it. So for me, emails is a thing I couldn't live without. I'm also lucky enough to have Bastion and Copilot, which are enterprise accounts where I can enter. One's FERPA compliant, the other's HIPAA compliant, so I'm able to do that. But there's a lot of things that don't have sensitive information that you can use any old AI for an email,
That's good. I like that. And maybe for folks who, like me, who are just starting to get their feet wet, the low-hanging fruit is the way to start.
Yeah, so what I do is and this is where we're at, essentially, AI creating emails, AI summarizing emails that come to you, and AI replying to emails. So at this point, it's like, why don't we just do bullet points to one another? Because that's all it is. But, I have it crafted very like, oh, kind sir, I hope you're well on this fine day. Yeah.
I love it.
What I want to talk about a little bit is perceptions. This is really interesting to me. People's perceptions of the quality and acceptability of AI has really gone up over the last year. So if you look at this here, if I say AI generated work is as good as the average school psychologist, okay? Only, less than 15% disagreed. So people are saying like, yeah, it's either somewhat agree or strongly agree. More than 50% at this point. And that's not even counting the people who are like, I'm in between. People at this point are saying like, yeah, for intervention goals, I think AI does at least as good as humans. Crazy. And by the way, a year ago, it was much lower than that. Intervention plans, it's a little less favorable, but still, if you take into neither, that is, people are like, I'm on the fence. Most people do not disagree with this assertion. They go like, AI is as good as the average practitioner. Now, here's the funny thing. If you were to ask them if it's as good as them, what do you think they would say? I don't think they would be this high. And that's one thing I found in my study is that people were like, oh, yeah. These reports they're as good as the average practitioner. But when you ask them, would you sign off on them? They go, no, I wouldn't. And that's because of better than average effect. Remember from social psychology? Everyone thinks they're better than average. Session notes. Again, if you take neither in, so that's gray or up, most people are like thinking AI is as good as a practitioner. Even for reports and test interpretations, people, by and large, think they either don't feel strongly about it or they go, yeah, AI is as good as humans. And this is funny. This was the area where people were really holdouts before. And I think it's because that's something we hold on to as our professional identity. We're the report writers and the testers. But I think as people see how powerful this technology is and see how much time it's saving them, they're going like, yeah, good enough, or really good. And a lot of this is going to come down to how well you know how to use these tools, honestly. Because a lot of these people are the people who aren't using it. So they're probably like, nope. I should run these stats taking out the people who said they haven't used AI and then see where they're at. And then for recommendations, boy, look at this. Only 2.6% strongly disagreed, and only 5.3% disagreed, and only about 8% somewhat disagreed. So most people agree the AI work is as good as the average practitioner.
Now, what would you think about breaking down those people even further? Like you said that those close to retirement are less likely to be engaged in this. Are training programs training school psychologists now to use AI? The interns that I've gotten, it didn't sound like they had any more like training on AI than maybe it kind of hit on in discussions and whatnot. Do we know our programs, are the younger, fresh out of grad school psychs coming in, like knowing some of this, or more interested in this, or is it, what do you think?
Well, as far as policies go, I'm working with some friends in at University of Cincinnati and Miami, the one in Ohio. We're looking at policies for school psychology programs. And what we're finding is that most programs are not allowing AI. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I'm kind of conflicted on it because students are going to go use this. But on the other hand, there's a phenomenon in technology use known as de-skilling, which is losing skills that you had. And we've seen this with doctors using electronic health records. The more they rely on technology, the more they lose skills they used to have. So think about it like you might have one time been able to use a map to get from point A to point B. If you're like me, you cannot. You pick up a map and you're like, what is this thing? But at some point, I could use one. Or someone could say, you know what? You're going to go take a left up here. You're going to go past a Shell gas station. And then there's this little red house. Right before that, you'll see an alley. Turn left there. Go in. It's the third house on the left. And I could actually do that to some success. Now, if anyone tries to do any of that to me, I go and I just put it in Google Map. It's because I've de-skilled. I've lost the ability to navigate my way through the world. This is happening with other skills. And this is what we worry about with people with AI, that they're going to lose skills that they used to have, which is why we need to talk about, are they skills they need to have? And if they are, what can we do to prevent that? Like maybe if people need to know how to write reports, maybe they should have to write 1 out of 10 just to keep that skill. I don't know. But the thing is, you can't lose a skill that you never had. So if you've been using AI from the start and never learned to write a report on yourself, you haven't gained that skill. And you're supposed to be the human in the loop or the expert in the loop who's looking at that output that AI gives you and going like, you know what? I like this, but I don't like that. And ooh, that's a hallucination right there. Warning. And by the way, a hallucination is just when AI spits out misinformation, which by the way, all AI does. And it's why we always need humans in these processes. But if you haven't learned that skill in the first place, you can't even lose it. So I think students do need to have it, which is why I ask my students to do these things, to learn these skills before they automate them. Is there a need for them to learn these skills? Yeah. Prompting, etc. At this point, there is. Although we're getting to the point of automation where in a few years, I don't think there'll be anything to it. I think it's going to be, I don't think prompting is going to even be a thing in a few years. In fact, with the reasoners we're seeing, it's not even really that much. It'll ask you a few questions like, well, do you want it in this style, that style, whatever? But yeah, some training at this point, absolutely necessary. Will it be necessary 5 years from now? I don't think so. Not for prompt engineering. Prompt engineering is not really a thing. It's just knowing how to ask good questions and knowing how to interact. It's not something you would need to go to 4 years of college for sure. Did I answer your question or did I just tangent there?
No, that's awesome, and that makes total sense to me about the prompting. And I've thought, that it's AI is just moving at such a pace that it's gonna not even need you to be a good prompter. It's just gonna know these things or ask you these questions to figure it out. Yeah.
And honestly, you could take a 1 hour course from me or from anybody else on prompting and practice around a little bit and pick it up. It's not rocket science by any measure.
Is that the type of skill that, like, if I was in charge of a psych department or a district or something, is that something that you think that people should seek out that training now, or are we just wait, another 5 years and nobody's going to need that skill anyways? Like, is that useful still?
No, you shouldn't wait 5 years. You should be harnessing this technology and saving time, improving your services right now. And I could be wrong. Maybe prompting will always be a thing. But the people I follow in the tech world are like, this won't be needed for forever. But right now, yeah, if you're, there's a number of things that leadership should be doing in any district, in any organization, that most aren't, that will make there much more transparency, that will make these tools much more productive, that they definitely should do. And that's one of the things I do for my consulting too, is AI audits, looking at where you're at, how do you implement this ethically, what do we need to do, how do we need to, what sort of policies do we need to have in place? Because when you look at the literature, people are using this, but it's a bottom-up process, meaning that everyone kind of uses it in silence. And in fact, I didn't pull up those statistics here, but in my studies and in other studies too, most of the times people's bosses don't know they're using it, or might kind of know, but there's nothing explicit. It's kind of this implicit, which is a problem for a number of reasons. But one of those reasons is nobody knows the best ways to use these things. So unless you're in a community where you're sharing, oh, you know what, this is a really great use of this technology in our work, you could find something really great and save a ton of time, and someone next to you or working in the same district might not know that same trick, or that's what they call use. It's a use case, but trick. Some trick that you found, some use that's saving you a ton of time that other people don't know about. So you want there to be some transparency. And that's something that any good leader who wants to harness AI should be advocating for, and in fact, rewarding. So if you can find employees that do something and it saves them time, instead of being like, well, now you get an extra 5 cases on your caseload, if you could reward them for that and spread that around, and then maybe give them some time to do some counseling or some consultation instead, that's a better approach, because otherwise people are going to hide that time they're saving because they're overworked, they're burnt out.
I was just thinking that are people reporting that they've saved a certain amount of time and have been able to use that time for better student interaction or better outreach toward parents or better increased counseling support, or have folks been reporting how their time is being recaptured and what they're doing with it?
Didn't ask that question, but did ask how much time on average per week they're saving, which was about a little over 4 hours a week, which is not insignificant. That's a half a day.
That's palpable.
Which, by the way, is up from 2 hours in the summer.
I would love to save 4 hours a week. That would be incredible.
Yeah, I mean, you could think how much guitar playing you could do.
Right? You know where my head goes, right?
So we ask people, like, how good of a job is this doing? People are more and more saying this does a good job. We ask people, how ethical is it? And more people are saying it's ethical. Now, whether that's because they're using better tools, becoming more comfortable, or just seeing the power and going like, you know what? It's ethical because I'm using it to save time. Whatever the reason is, you can look here, and the red is I strongly disagree that it's ethical. Most of the way, people are saying this is ethical to use. This last one here is I asked people, do you think you need training? And most people said yes. There was 1, 2 people that said, nah, I don't need, I don't know who that person was, but those people were, but most people said we need training. But you can see people are more and more going, yeah, this is ethical, which again is a big difference. When I asked people a year ago, they weren't so on board. And by the way, this includes the people who are not using AI. This is just
Do you think if people are aware that their AI tools are HIPAA compliant or FERPA compliant, that satisfies that ethical component, or do you think there's more? My questions, I guess, for ethics would be things like bias in the system and things that increase equity and accessibility and those kinds of things. But I don't know enough about it to know whether those are being considered.
No, you're absolutely right. So there's a difference between legal and ethical considerations. And what you were talking about first was legal. HIPAA, FERPA, those are all legal. And by the way, HIPAA applies to health information, so that's not what we're beholden to in the schools. But FERPA is the legal requirements for schools. That's different than these ethical concerns. Like, what are the impacts on society? I would consider that to be a moral or ethical issue. Or is this introducing bias? Is this negatively impacting historically marginalized people? And by the way, there's research to suggest that, yeah, when used incorrectly, that definitely is a problem. In this survey, we did not dig into that, but that's an area that's rife for examining. What do people think? Because I have asked those questions. I don't think they're in this, because like I said, I just slopped this together today. I didn't slop it together, but I put this together today because I wanted to have up-to-date data and I wanted it to be interactive. But I bet if I was to open up one of these old slides, maybe not this one. Well, so if I ask people why are they not using AI, they would say things like, oh, ethical concerns, uncertainty about legal implications. But looky down here, only 30% are saying concerns about bias, which is low. 100% of people should be concerned about this and they should be doing things about it. So, yeah. I mean, you can just look even in January, how much this is agree, this is disagree. Disagree was much higher than it is now for what was that? For these. So I'll pull it up one more time. It's hard because this one's flipped on its side, but this is disagree. Look how it's a big old chunk. When you get here, look how small most of the red chunks are. Small. So we've seen a huge shift even since January. Now, some of this could be an artifact of the sample, although I think some of these are the exact same people because they're both school psychologists from Ohio. But yeah, interesting.
We had a conversation before we kind of went live, and I think there was a comment about, like, you know, does writing as a skill, is that even going to matter? And we hit on that a little bit too. And so I'm just kind of wondering, yeah, your take on, like, we had Dr. Harris on last episode about how to teach children how to write effectively and whatnot. Are they entering a world where that is no longer going to matter, like, because everyone's just going to use AI? Like, I'm just curious what you think about some of those types of skills. Are they going away? Or
yeah, I don't know. There's this researcher in at UNC Greensboro. He does a lot of research on using AI to write IEPs. And we were having a conversation and we were talking about this exact same thing. 20 years from now, will people need to know how to read and write? And we were both We didn't know. Because honestly, if you're like me and you have a paid account, you use voice to voice all the time. So you see me walking down the street looking like a crazy person talking to my phone and then listening. It's because ChatGPT, Gemini, I have paid accounts for both of those. I just talk to it. I don't have to type. And do we need to have written word? Do we need to know how to read? I don't know. I mean, I hope we do, because I love reading and I love writing. There's an art, there's a beauty there, but it's definitely not guaranteed that really, and I could be wrong because I don't have a crystal ball and I'm not prescient, but to me, there's no cognitive or kind of abstract skill that could not be replaced by AI on a long enough timeline. And to take it for granted is something you need to know how to do, to me, seems foolish. Again, I could be totally wrong, but to me, that's my take on it. Reading, writing, are they going to be around? I don't know. I hope they are.
So I know, sort of ethically, we were talking a little bit before the, this kind of leads to Rachel's thoughts. So maybe I should let you jump in with it, Rachel. Just like replacing jobs and the incredible use of natural resources, electricity and water, and AI computer plants sort of being built in marginalized communities where pollution may not be monitored as well, and all of that stuff. Not to mention, Rachel, I'll let you jump in with your question about where this may take us in the future as well.
I mean, yeah, we were just talking. I mean, I think you're bringing up, the article that I know, I think you had posted and I had read before the podcast about this, impact on jobs. And, I wonder about my kids. Like, the expectation for so long has been like, people go to college and you learn a thing, and like maybe trade schools now are more maybe hands-on. It's going to be the more desirable thing for sure to, I don't know. It has implications beyond school psychology, obviously. And I don't want to like derail the podcast too much, but it's very fascinating. So
yeah. No, 100%. I think it's our moral responsibility as humans, but especially as helping professionals, to be thinking about these wider issues. So if you've ever heard of Jensen Huang, he's the CEO of NVIDIA. He's famously said in the last 6 months, I would not encourage any kid to learn to program a computer. Okay? Why? Because AI codes, all this stuff that you're looking at here, I did with zero coding, and I had it create interactive, code. So will it change the workforce? It already has. That's the truth. That's the truth. If you look at hiring for copywriting, for coding, etc., it's already changed things, and we're only at the start of things. Things going to change. School psychologists, I think, are a little bit better positioned than a lot of people because they're human facing, and that's important. As of right now, and I hope forever, people want to interact with other humans for things that have to do with mental health. So I hope that continues. But will other people who get out of jobs, will that affect you as a human being? I hope so. And does it affect you from an economic standpoint? It has to. Whenever there's a depression, or a recession, we all suffer. Will other people reskill if they are a computer programmer and go like, I'm going to do something that's human facing because there's still jobs in that? Yeah, probably. That's what I would do. So that's good for me as a trainer of school psychologists. And in fact, I've seen our numbers going up, which is a good thing for us. Over the past 2 years, we're having better numbers in our program, which is amazing. I love that. But this is already having an impact. The impact, depending on who you ask, is anywhere from significant to incredibly significant. So, but we have a say in that. Whenever I talk about this stuff, I don't want people to get freaked out. I want them to act. We can advocate that as these gains are realized by these tech companies, that we, the people, also benefit. We could be working a 3.5-day work week. You know, if AI takes over these tasks, we can work less. Some of that wealth can be shared across the board. It doesn't mean that people just have to be put out to pasture. It means that we can all work a little bit less and enjoy the same quality of life. But I'm not sure that's going to be handed to us in the same way that the first, second, and third industrial revolution, things weren't handed to us. We had to unionize. We had to work collectively to get, you know, a 40-day work week and protections. We got to do that right now. I feel very strongly about that, but that could reflect my politics, and I'm sorry for injecting my politics. But this is a disruptive technology, and it can be disruptive for good or bad. That power is in our hands. Okay, I believe that. It's not set in stone. The people who are the tech giants and the CEOs might not want it to be that way, but if we act together, they will acquiesce. Anyways, sorry about the politics.
That's well said. I appreciate that. And I think that goes along with so many things, especially in our current political climate right now. We do have to stand together and change what, you know, collectively work on change before things change us. So, yeah.
Right. And there's, in my opinion, there's people in politics who are trying to divide us and keep us from acknowledging so many of the things that we share in common that are our same goals. So hopefully we don't let that continue.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, we had a great comment from Byron. He agrees with that take. We are human facing, so we have that in our favor for sure, and ultimately it will impact us. Well said. So we have some good participation in our chat. Some folks are listening and commenting along, and I know, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Share some more, please.
I think most folks were just sort of chiming in about good thoughts, good questions, rather than asking specific questions. But I'm curious. I know we have a number of school psych tools at our disposal. Well, and I don't know what you've connected with, but I know you're going to be teaching a class at the School Neuropsych Institute this summer. And we have School Psych AI. We have Click Report, which is a report writing program. We've had the author of that program on, as well as Byron McClure. And we've had John Sakachia on as well, who is also doing some AI work in psychology. So I'm wondering what tools you've come across, and I know, like we've talked, we want to make sure things are legally FERPA compliant for us as school psychologists. Have you come across things that seem really good? You've mentioned your accounts that, with ChatGPT, and I've forgotten the other one, but what are your thoughts?
There's a ton of people in this space. You're leaving out many. Lily through is another one. Dan Miller with PsychWriter Pro now is AI implemented at some point. Psych Assist, Synth. There's a bunch on the clinical side, and most of them I've met with in some form or another. Lightner AI is another one. So because I don't have business relationships with any of those people, I don't really want to weigh in one way or the other. I'd really like for people to use good judgment and use NASP guidelines, which will be coming up pretty soon, to make those. And I do walk people through that process in my trainings. Like here's what the APA and here's what NASP says you should look for. But as far as critiquing any certain companies, I'm just not comfortable doing that right now.
No, that's totally okay.
But
And I was just
the company I mentioned, Bastion GPT, it's just
yeah.
a wrapper to Chat GPT. It's just
Okay.
a portal to GPT that's HIPAA compliant, and I have a free account that I use.
Okay.
But
I was just thinking,
I'm not
wondering what your
endorsing
thoughts
them
were on.
either. I'm not
Yeah,
endorsing
totally
them.
okay. Yep. And I'm so unaware of so many of these programs. You know, I've got like maybe 3 in my head. But
Well,
no, not looking for any
If
criticism.
you're a Google campus, there's a chance that your Gemini account, your workplace account, could be HIPAA compliant or FERPA compliant. If you have a Microsoft account, there's a chance you could have an enterprise account that's FERPA compliant. These are questions you shouldn't be asking me. These are questions you should be asking either someone in IT or legal at the organization, the district that you work at, because those are the people that can answer these questions. I do 100% believe that you should be transparent in your use. That is, you should ask, do we have a policy about this? Can I use this? Because if your district says you cannot use it and you use it anyways, well, that's unethical, and it puts the district at risk and puts you at risk. And honestly, it's just unethical. It's unprofessional and unethical. So ask. And if your district doesn't have policies in place, ask for that too, because they really are behind the 8 ball if they're not doing that at this point.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I have no idea. And
People don't. We asked the survey, like, do you have a policy? They don't know.
And I teach adjunct at a university as well in the school psych training program. And I'm not quite sure what our university policy is either. So I'll spend some time this summer figuring that out and asking.
Well, and part of that, and I don't want to be too harsh on any administrators or anything, is a leadership issue. Me as a leader, with my students, I say, look, here is my policy. And I'm clear about it because I don't want there to be any ambiguity. I don't want people to say, I don't know, so I'm just kind of figuring it out. It's a leadership issue. Leaders, administrators should have clear policies, and they should be, disseminating those policies to the people in their district.
I think that flows nicely into, so you mentioned NASP having guidance. You're on the task force. Can you talk a little bit about how that task force came to be, like where things are at? Like, is there anything that we should be aware of from looking to NASP, and how is that going?
Well, they put out a call. So who would like to be on this task force? And I said I would, and I've actually done some research. And so can I do it? It's service is an interesting thing, right? It's like, who wants to come work for free? And depending on what the work is, sometimes they really need people and they can't get them in. And sometimes people, I want to work for free. In this case, there was actually a lot of competition. So it was a luck thing. And I had some experience, and I got on there with that. Where it's at, we've created our document, and it's gone to the board, is how I understand it. And now the board is making their decisions, and they're going through and signing off or not signing off. And I don't know where that is. I know that, like, for example, I wanted to reference it for a publication, and I was told, no, you cannot do that. So there does seem to be they're not, I don't think they're set on it in any way, but it's out there. It's going through the process.
Are you able to tell us, like, will we recognize any names on the task force, or is that like a big
secret? Yeah. I don't think that's secret or anything. Dan Florell, he's the technology person. Him and I are starting an AI specific podcast here soon too. And he's actually doing the School Neuropsych Institute training. He's doing one of the portions. And by the way, there is someone who's going to be doing specifically AI school specific tools. That's just not the area that I focus on. Dan Gatke, Ryan Farmer, and Ryan and I have published on all sorts of things related to assessment and AI. Sam Kim, other people. Oh, the new president, Jason Peterson, he was on there. I hope I'm not talking out of school by calling all these people out. Monica, yeah, lots of good people, lots of passionate people, lots of knowledgeable people. I can't remember everyone right now.
Good group, yeah.
A number of folks who we've had on the podcast as well. So,
yeah.
I know we're going to run out of time in a few minutes, but I know you've shared some resources with us, and so we'll just to let the listeners know, we'll share out your research and the links that you've shared with us as well, so people have access to your blog and all of that.
Yeah, thank you. I do blog a lot, and I try to make everything pretty accessible for people who aren't techies and pretty timely. And so all my research, for example, is always going to be put up there first. And I share with you a bunch of preprints. So all the research I do, I put up and is freely available to people. Usually all the data I use is too on OSF. So that's included. So if people want to actually read an article, they can. Or if they like to use AI like I do, they can feed it to Notebook LM and then ask Notebook LM questions or turn it into an audio overview. And by the way, if you don't use Notebook LM, boy, you should. It's free. And it is awesome for creating podcasts of information you want to learn. I love it. Yeah, I have a number of trainings coming up that people can attend. I would love that. My website, lots of blogs, lots of tools that come up. I'm posting on LinkedIn and Facebook a lot. I'd really like more interaction. So if people actually want to respond to things, that'd be great. Otherwise, I'm having to go to metrics and see like who's clicking and how long are they there. And luckily with AI, I can come up with summaries pretty quickly to do that. But
I wonder if
more interactions.
People could go there and then say, what kinds of questions should I ask Adam about this to an AI program and generate some ways to interact.
Yeah. 100%. I use AI as a consultant all the time. So if I'm working on something, I go, hey, I'm thinking about doing this research. I use something like O3 a lot of times, which is one of the reasoning models from OpenAI. And I say, you're acting as a school psychologist and researcher. You're working on this project. Take a look at what I'm doing. What am I missing? Or what would be cool to look at? All sorts of things. What don't I know?
Super interesting. So last call for questions and comments as we're kind of wrapping up. I know we talked a little bit again before we went live about some of these predictions, these more like catastrophic, like end the world type predictions as far as AI in general. So what is your take on that? Or what are people saying as far as, we can see like amazing things that AI can do from the other end, just because I'm a negative pessimist. Like, are we at risk for like destroying ourselves? It's going to be like Terminator, like, yeah.
This is a very disruptive and powerful technology, and it's evolving quickly. So whenever that happens, it's dangerous. But there's a quote I like, and it goes like this, something like this. This is not verbatim, but technology is not good or bad, nor neutral. You get it? It's not good or bad or neutral. It depends on how it's used. So if it's used responsibly, if it's used ethically, if it's used morally, if marginally historically marginalized people have a say in how it's used. If it's controlled and regulated and not just allowed to be used however makes money, it can be good. If not, it can be used bad. So, really want people to be thinking about these, not just how are they using this in their school psychology life, but what sort of future do they want to have and what sort of power do they have? Because I really think that people do have power. So it's not good, it's not bad, and it's not neutral. It really comes up to how it's used, and you have a say in how it's used. Does that make sense? But there's definitely all sorts of potential for bad. And there's all sorts of potential for good. It can cure cancer, or it can be used to generate misinformation and undermine democracy.
Phew, that's a lot. We had someone just ask, how can they contact you? Is it okay to share your contact information here?
Please
Your
do,
email?
Yeah. Email or... Yeah.
I'll put your email into the comments.
And I love to hear from people. I love to, text, email, argue. As long as it's not an attack on the person, I'm happy to debate anything. I don't know everything, and I'm painfully aware of that. So if you disagree with anything I say, that's great. You're thinking critically, and I respect that.
All right. I was looking for any last minute comments or questions, but there was a lot to chew on. I don't think I have any more questions. I don't know, Eric, if you have any final kind of thoughts or questions to get in there. But all good stuff. Wow. Just floods my brain.
Well, thank you both so much. I appreciate this.
And I think for everybody watching, this is our final podcast episode of the school year. We'll plan to be back in the fall. I think that AI is evolving so quickly that we could have like a monthly podcast on AI and still not like keep up on everything. So I'm hoping that we can continue to, have conversations with people like Dr. Lockwood, to keep us abreast. And I do wonder, because like I said, I haven't seen interns coming in that like know how to use it so much, but once the group of students that are in high school now that are using AI to write their high school papers and then maybe go into college and are using it there and then go into school psychology and are using, they're going to be so fluent in this that eventually our workforce, I think, is really going to shift and they're going to know a lot more than us older folk have any clue about. So,
and I should be clear that I do train my students on how to use it in didactics. Like, here's how you write, here's how you can use it to help you write emails, things like that. But for report writing, at this time, I think they need to have those skills. So I'm like, I want you to figure it out on your own first before you learn how to use AI to do it. But I definitely allow them to use it for writing papers, for whatever, as long as they're transparent in their use. Yeah.
And I think there's something to be said about using it. Maybe you write something and then use AI, to revise, to make it more readable, to like all those things I think are really, so you can have that skill of writing a report, but still enhance that. So that's really cool. But yeah, we'll be back. I hope that everybody's school year is winding down. You're not buried in a million referrals and the end is near and everybody has a great summer. So.
Yeah, I hope everything, it's restorative for people. I think we all need that. And maybe I will use the time to get more acquainted with AI. And I think we have Byron McClure coming in the fall. So, we'll continue talking about this and we can have you back on too, Adam, as the research is changing and you have more survey results and, we'll keep these conversations going.
We have tons of research projects in data collection, analysis, writing stages. So there's always more stuff. And I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you, everybody, for watching and enjoy your summer.
Good summer.